Hello, everyone, and welcome back. My name is Carolyne Mathlin. I am the Program Director and Global Director for the Evolutionary Collective, and I am here with Patricia Albere, the founder of the Evolutionary Collective. So last we were together, we were talking about the origin and the source of this work and, how it has continued to express itself over the course of the last 13 years. As a part of our conversation that we call State of the Unity, or this kind of dialogue about what's happened and where we're going. So let's continue that because we stopped with you talking about 4 or 5 months ago. There were revelations that were starting to clarify things.
Yeah.
Can you say more about that? What did you?
Yeah. No,
what did you mean?
Love to. And I just want to say for our community, I know who's on this list. Like, there are people that are, super interested or have just learned about, what it is that we're doing. But I think everyone has some kind of sixth sense, that there's something happening, there's something new that may be possible for us individually and for the world. So the revelation, and like you said, in this emergence, what happens is it's such an interesting journey. It's very different than learning things that have already gotten worked out, or studying ancient religions and things that have, lineages and things that have already been determined to work. And there's a beauty to that, but there's a kind of excitement. And Teilhard de Chardin, who was a Jesuit priest, who I'm sure many people are familiar with, who basically discovered a lot of he was pointing to many of the things that we're living within the Evolutionary Collective and the work that we're doing. And I didn't discover him for maybe 3 to 5 years into the work. And when I did, I thought, oh, if we have any lineage, it's like we're connected to him. We're connected to what he was seeing. And we're beginning to live what he was pointing to and more. So, but revelations come, you can't force them. Sometimes you feel like you're literally groping in the dark. So he used the word evolutionary groping. And not, some people have bad connotations, but groping is like this kind of like you're going like this, and then you find something, and then you can work with it, and then you're kind of, reaching for something else. And to some degree, it's in the dark. Some degree, it's in the unknown. It's in the realm of what we don't know, and what we don't know that we don't know. It's not something you can just learn because it's been figured out. So we've been groping. And sometimes it's more dark, and then every once in a while the light shines and you see, and you start getting the downloads and the clarity. And so 4 or 5 months ago, one of the things that came through that was thrilling to me was what I call the thresholds of unity. And it was clarifying that there are entirely different like zones where we can work from as individuals, and what's possible in each one. There are different potentials and possibilities depending on which threshold you are working. And there's a different cost to each one, just like, going from being single to being married to having a family, I don't know, there's sort of like, those are kind of threshold. What you get to experience and have as an individual as a single person is different than what happens when you're married. But it also costs something to be married and to have what's potential there, and then to have a family, et cetera. So, everything has its price and its freedom. So this thresholds has clarified why, the core, what the work that we're doing there and where we're headed, and then also the global community, which is within the second threshold. There was a lot of clarity about that, and then how to deepen that for them, and then what's beyond where we are. You could actually see what was the promise that was pulling us. So what is it? I mean, there's a lot to share about that. I mean, what is it you want to know about? Yeah.
I guess my first question after you saying that is, why is that important? Why is that such a revelation? You know,
Okay. Well, the piece that was like, you know, like that, like we've known, and the people that have been involved with what we're doing and the people on Global, et cetera, that are, you know, doing the practice, et cetera, there's some kind of magic. Like people feel the spiritual power in what is here. And you can feel yourself feeling more intimate and connected and getting freer in a very particular way that's hard to put your finger on. You know, there's a kind of spontaneity and fluidity. I mean, there's things that happen and you're more in flow and, you know, but there's a taste to it that's been very hard for us to explain, you know, in the trying to tell people like why they should do this. So in the mutual awakening practice, which I think most of the people that will be listening to this understand, is there's a half-hour practice where we ask you to be with another human being in a very particular way. And the most important part of it, there's a few elements that are crucial, is, and I didn't have a word for it initially, but it was to come from this invisible, like this nothing that is also incredibly particular. And it's you. So it's this particularity that is an irreducible Carolyne or Patricia. It's so particular, and yet it's also nothing. It's like this opening. It's like this source of you. And I kept like going, but it's not your soul. Like I've studied essential self. I've worked with essence. I've done meditation. I've worked with authenticity and soul levels and past lives and all kinds of stuff, you know, and it wasn't that. Like it felt audacious to say, it's something else, it's something else, it's something else. It's like coming from there, this unity, like you literally become one with each other very easily. And it's not the same when you're trying to connect through essence or even through your souls. Like there's something different that happens. There's something lovely, but it's different. Like Sobet is a kind of soul level connection that the Sufis would do. So there's a different, it's like wine tasting. There's a different taste. And there's not just a different taste, there's a different potential. Like what can happen is different. So we've been, you know, the origin point or origination point, you know, that's gotten clearer and clearer and how to help people to come from there and what happens. And I didn't understand, like, why is it that when you connect from there and you start to live from there, your life changes? I mean, it really changes. There seems to be, like, certain things fall away. There's less of this, like, slugging through your karmic issues and patterning in the same way. Even a less desire to do that. And, you know, and we weren't sure, like, and it wasn't spiritual bypass. It was like, there's something else going on here. There's something else. And finally, the revelation that came from moving from the first threshold to the second, so I'll just give you that part, is the first threshold is the entirety of this incarnational soul loop. So generally, the way humans have arrived on Earth for thousands of years, it seems, is that the opportunity has been to arrive here as an individual soul and to be working with your, you know, your karma, the sense of incarnation, the patterns, the freedoms, you know, I mean, like I've done past life regressions. Like I have seen, you know, like where things come from in your childhood and your history. And there's like and when you're developing, you're grounding, you know, you want to be in your body and you're connecting with your own divine individual connection. And you do that through meditation and through prayer and through other kinds of practices that are, it's like, it's between you and your higher self and you and your God or you and your divine connection, whatever you want to call it, and me with mine. And that's a huge journey. You know, there's so much around and in and through that potential and that way of being on Earth. And I kept getting snippets and pieces at the origin point, you know, and then it came clear that the origin point is an entirely different threshold. It isn't just a deeper part of the soul, like it's like the soul encases it. It's over here, like it's from the place where the origin point has never been in the karmic wheel of it all. And there's something about it that it as it comes into full connection with others as one, then there's something greater that starts to move it and move us. And there's a kind of pure divinity and grace that is given that is different than the grace that is given in the individual incarnational loop. And it's new, and it's like something where the evolutionary future has access to us there. It can pull us there. It can give to us there. It doesn't have the same weight. Like there's a heaviness in the first part of the journey. You know, until you get very enlightened and free there, but you're enlightened and free and maybe nobody else is. You know, here, it's like from the origin point, there's something that's exchanging between us and with others that is making an opening for something else. I had this funny image this morning when I woke up. I felt like we were like the origin point was like this, like we're stretching open this portal and like so that, or an arc, you know, it's like the 2x2, so that we can cross over into an actual place of shared unity that doesn't have all the light and dark and all of the wars and the violence. Like all of what is incarnated here is also still very rooted to our beginnings as humans, you know, our survival instincts. It's about survival. This one is about divinity. It's actually about being pulled towards that which we are created within, and the divinization of the world, which is what Teilhard talked about. Like that what we were here for was to come in together to divinize the world, to make the world, you know, true, good, and beautiful together, and to create, you know, like to do that. And that looks like this pie in the sky, far-fetched, like she's got to be crazy. You know, did you look at CNN this morning? You know, kind of thing. Like, are you kidding?
Or if you'd only heard the conversation between me and my spouse.
I know, like, I mean, you gotta be nuts.
There's no hope.
Yeah, like you're talking some crazy here. But the second threshold, as that's starting to awaken, I can feel, you know, you can feel the hybrid. You can feel the pull, and then here, and then the pull. But there's something that's being given that if we can keep finding it and building the matrix, you know, it's like the matrix, I guess, you know, like, you know, if you go into that, it's entirely a different medium and a different possibility. And we're still discovering how do you keep, we know how to find it, but as far as sustaining and building, you know, something that we can live from, and that the things that were added to us can continue to fall away. So that's the second. So to me, that is like mind-blowing, because people do we practices. People do all different kinds of we space things and, you know, like enter things with other people. But from the first threshold, it's entirely different. You can learn some really beautiful ways of coming together, you know, of connecting with each other. But if you're doing it inside the first threshold,
individuals.
It's a whole different, it's kind of like there's a whole different potential. There's a whole different what happens to you. It doesn't have a whole lot of impact. And for some reason, when people let themselves be less shaped by all of the things that they're doing in the first threshold, they kind of let go a little bit and let this have its way with us. Even though we're doing simple things, there's something in the frequency of this, in the shaping of this, that has an impact on people's lives. You feel freer. There's more lift. There's a sense of not being alone. And there's more of a sensitivity. I mean, the bad part is there's more of a sensitivity of, or the painful part of how hopeless it is to be endlessly separate. I mean, you can actually see that it's hopeless. You know, there's no amount of being separate in the first threshold, no matter how awake you get, that is ever going to work for this world. That we have to find this different evolutionary potential that's being given. So to me, that, and then there's a third threshold, there's more. Do you know what I mean? There's another one where you actually, there are other things that necessitate the coming together in a more committed, unified body, like a living body of unity that has other requirements. You have to kind of come together in person. I mean, you have to like build it even stronger, but then there's even more potential. And there's more things of being able to see what we have to purify or be aware of so that that can come into full unity without being split apart. You know, there are ways that which humans are notoriously, you know, reliable. And, you know, you get people together to some degree and they will, you know, like break things apart through various kinds of competitiveness, separation, fear, you know, wanting to dominate, wanting to be competitive. Yeah, I mean, there's just like a million ways that we ruin things with each other. Not even necessarily because we want to, but just because we're wired that way. You know, we're wired to be separate in survival. And, you know, we're innovating in that third threshold as well. So to me, that's mind-blowingly revelatory.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the other kind of nuanced piece to that I want to have a quick conversation about is the conversation that you and I have had many times about, from the first threshold, the cost of engagement is very minimal. You know, we've gotten used to listening to the download later, and you know, I know I have. And that, what we're finding is that doesn't work here, does it? I mean,
no, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
It's the antithesis. So, I mean, it matters to engage in the first thing also, you know, to be participatory to some degree. But you can take courses, you can do a million things that don't require moving beyond separation. And everything on the internet, for the most part, you know, you can listen to or not, or, you know, I mean, I was amazed at some of the larger, you know, spiritual educational organizations where what's normal is, even when people pay for and sign up for courses, you know, 10 to 20% show up. Everybody else listens or doesn't listen to it later. So this requires full out being present, not only being present, but learning how to come from this origin point and then leaning forward into complete presence, like presence in a way that you don't even do with your partner half the time or your child. You know, you listen. Sometimes you half listen. So this requires a kind of real engagement. And you and I have had fun, you know, when we have our free, you know, like workshops and things like that, you know, getting people to turn their Zoom on and just kind of like, guess what, guys, you got to turn it on and show up and be here together, because this doesn't work any other way. That's what this is about. So we've been retraining, I think, people to know how to participate with the potentials that are here.
Yeah, because that's really where, you know, for lack of a better term, yeah, the magic happens. That's where.
Only. Yeah. Well, just like love. Like, what are you going to read about love? You can read about love, but real love only happens with a certain amount of risk and a certain amount of engagement. There ain't no way around it. You know, like, it is not, you can't have it on your terms. And part of, like, in the first threshold, I mean, obviously from a spiritual perspective, there's a lot of things that will not happen for you there either on your terms. There's a certain level of success you're not going to have on your terms either. You know, so there's that lesson needs to be learned no matter where you are. But in particular, with the second threshold, and then obviously in the third, more and more you have to really give up, your personal will. I want, I don't want, like you have to, it doesn't mean you don't have choice, but ultimately, as you become more coming from this place and become one, there's such a quality of spontaneity. It's not about this conscience, I decide, I don't decide, like I'm witnessing, I'm thinking, all of that kind of keeps falling away so that that you're in a flow state, which is also a very different phenomenon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's all, what's exciting is we have established a global community. We know how to teach people reliably how to go into the consciousness. And if they're there, if you get people to do things, that's always the hard part of it all is trying to get human beings to commit themselves to doing what engaging. And once they engage, there's things that are just happening. You're literally, it's like the rain is raining on you. If you go where we're asking you to go, like you will get wet and it will be, you will be nourished. And then beyond that, there are other elements that are very exciting. Yeah. And so, we're discovering, and there's a purity too, like we're discovering how to move beyond, like, when you watch the things in the world and you're thinking, well, why is everybody doing that? And how come they don't listen to each other? And it's like, that's the very gross level condition that is happening every day for everyone. Everybody lives in their own world. And we do project on each other. We don't really see who's there, not even with our own children half the time. Do you know what I mean? Like you don't realize we're designed to be separate. So the peer, like the taking those veils away so that we're actually in real contact with each other and with reality, with a shared reality. Isn't that what we want for the world? And if we don't change the consciousness, there's no way. It's not going to happen. There's no amount of teaching people how to listen to each other separately that's ever going to, cross the divide of a humanity that is actually experiencing that different matrix, that being connected really and truly, not just knowing that we're connected. Like that's useless. It doesn't help. The actuality of being connected and functioning from there, then many things will be possible that are not currently. And so that's what you and I are obsessed with. And, many of the people that are participating in this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. This has been a beautiful time of connecting and touching into what's emerging. And we'll continue to have these kinds of conversations and include our Evolutionary Collective community in these conversations, because that's what matters. That conversation to have, right?
That's what matters. Really. Yeah. Thank you, Carolyne.
We are obsessed.
We are obsessed.
In the best possible way.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you so much, and thank you, everyone, and see you soon.